Come on, computer. There we go.
Okay. 5 people?
Yeah, 5 people. 8 people? Woo! Wow.
Is that a record?
For a beginning, yes, it is. So hello, everyone that's here. We're going to wait just a couple of seconds, but I don't think we really need to wait very long with already over 5 people, 6 people, 8 people in here. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Terrier Talk. This is episode 11, and I'm here with my special guest, Michael Charbonnet. Nice to have you here. Yes, nice to meet you. So,
I see what you did there.
So we have Michael Charbonnet and a little bit about his background as an athlete, and of course, as normal. And you have you started off sophomore year playing football. Looked like you were going to be the heir apparent for the quarterback position. Then won too many concussions, and now you're playing non-contact sports, and you're doing very well at it, having a lot of success at tennis. So how was that transition?
It was kind of difficult leaving from football to where there's like a lot of fans and everything to tennis where you have like 2 fans.
Yeah, it's football. Like I've gone to a lot more sports that aren't as big over the course of this year, partially because of Terrier Talk. I want to give more accurate videos. I've gone to baseball games, gone to softball games, track meets, things like that, and it's very interesting to see the difference in crowd. I always thought that the crowds were a little bit bigger than they were, but it's still very interesting to see that difference.
Right.
And now the interesting thing about tennis is both tennis teams, from what I've seen from their small sample size at this point, have seemed to be pretty competitive this season.
Well, the girls are extremely good. I mean, the girls are really good. They'll probably make a run in state, but the boys' team is a pretty weak man-ball team.
Well,
considering the past.
No, I understand that, and I know the boys' teams had a lot of success in the past. So maybe this is a slight disappointment for them this season. But that's not to say that it's been a bad season so far. A lot of games have gotten canceled. A lot of games have gotten postponed. And with only 3 games this season, 2 of them being against probably the favorites in the state, it's really hard to look at that 1-2 record and think that it's going to be an unsuccessful year for us going into it. Obviously, there's a lot more at stake in the future than looking at so far.
Right.
And speaking of, this is also going to sort of show as a review for the St. Thomas More game last week. So how exactly did that game go?
Okay, well, it went pretty terrible for the boys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the girls, they won out.
Well, yeah, I know the girls are having a lot of success. St. Thomas More, I guess a little bit of background for the for people who aren't as aware with the tennis world. St. Thomas More, they're good in every sport, and tennis is no exception. And they are probably one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win in boys. And in girls, they're always a top team. And our girls were able to beat them twice this season already, including once last week on Monday. The boys did not have quite the same success. I guess a little bit more about that.
So they have the number 1 player in the state.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Grant, I'm pretty sure. And so nobody's going to beat him on our team. Like, he's 6-0s everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, their second singles player is pretty good. I mean, Hunter Bates went pretty close with him. And then their first doubles team is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So in the game last week, 2 weeks ago, so their number 1 player for doubles wasn't there. He was on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So we won. Our number 1 doubles team actually beat them. And then our number 2 singles team is me and Jackson. And we lost to their number 2, but we didn't play for the 2 weeks because we had exams, and then we had Mardi Gras. Right?
Between exams and Mardi Gras, all of the sports were a little bit on the down when it came to specific schedules.
Right. Yeah, but Trey actually aced the number 1 player in the state.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. So I guess, speaking of that, you were talking about different singles games, different doubles games. What is the format of a tennis match? Like, how many different matches are there between singles and doubles scored? How is that?
So first off, there's 6 games in a set.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, so there's 6 games in a set. So the way that we play it normally is the best 2 out of 3.
Mm-hmm.
So say each person wins 2 games.
Right.
Okay, then you do a superset, which is basically a tiebreaker where you just play to 7.
Right. Okay.
All right. So it's pretty simple.
But I mean, I understand that. I was more talking about so one person wins this game, another person, like the other person from a different team, from the other team, wins their game. How many different games in a match do you have to win that match?
Oh, to win the match. Okay, so basically there's It's the first one to 6 for a
Okay.
game. So you know how it goes like 15, 30, 45, and then 15, 30, and
Right.
then 40.
Right.
Okay, so you win 6 of those, and then you win the match.
No, I understand. No, I'm not talking about like one of those games. I'm talking about the match as a whole, like Vanderbilt versus St. Thomas More.
Vanderbilt versus St. Thomas More. Okay,
How many games, like you versus their singles number or whoever it is? How many of those?
Basically, you have your number 1 singles, your number 2 singles.
Mhm.
Usually that's it for singles. They may have 3. So, and then they have, for us, we have 4 doubles teams.
Mhm.
So basically, so there's 6 teams. So basically, if you win 4,
Okay. What happens if it's 3-3?
then it's just a tie.
It's just a tie. You
It's
just
just a tie.
how often does that happen?
Very rare.
That's interesting. And you'd think with such a simple way for a tie to happen that it would happen more often.
Right. I've never seen it happen.
Wow. Okay.
I've only played in 3, so.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. I guess one thing is a lot of games have gotten postponed, a lot of games have gotten canceled throughout the season. So it's a little bit too early to look at that. And this is your first year playing tennis, or at least for the team at the very least. John Jensen, I'm supersetting right now. Specifically mentioning you. I don't specifically understand what he's talking about. What
Me and him work out a good bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a reference to okay.
That's how he hit the game-winning double. His arms were so big.
Yeah, and I guess shout out for that. What a great play for you, John. Great job in that game-winning double earlier on in the season. So great for that. Anything else, I guess, of note for tennis so far this season?
The girls are really good. The guys, we can improve. That's about it.
Okay. Like I find it very interesting going into the season for myself specifically. I didn't know very much about the tennis team, and then now all of a sudden I know almost all of the tennis players. It's like
Right.
there are like 5 guys I know really well. There are a bunch of girls. Like there's some of the girls I know really well, and I'm hearing about the tennis team a lot, and I'm happy about that. And it's like it's becoming. I think it's growing, and I think that's interesting, and I can't wait to see how this goes on throughout the rest of the season, and hopefully both teams can make a run both in the district and in state.
All right. Did we get another comment?
Yes, we did. Someone shouting out your own sporting events.
Michael Ball.
Michael Ball.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's. I don't really know much about that, and it's not.
I'm planning on making it a club.
Okay, well, if that is to happen, I'll probably cover it as a sport for next season. But until that is to happen, it's just a fun little thing, right?
It's more than fun. It's amazing.
Okay,
Godly.
Michael. Well, thank you for being on the show, and pleasure to have you.
Have a good one.
Yes, thank you. So, thanks to Michael. We talked about tennis, and we're going to go ahead and move on to baseball. And I guess one quick thing, while everyone is here, 24 people are watching the live stream right now. That is a record for Terrier Talk, and thank you for everyone who is able to help make that happen. That is amazing. Thank you. So now I'm going to go ahead and quickly move on. Actually, go ahead before while people are here. Hopefully, you'll want to stay for the rest of the events. Now up to 25 people. This Tuesday night, March 19th. I'm going to plug it a couple more times throughout the show. But Tuesday night, March 19th, this week, 2 days from now, the Terrier Talk special episode, March Madness. I'm going to go through my entire bracket, go through every single game, why I'm picking every single team I am, and I'm going to go through the whole bracket Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, March 19th. Be there. So moving on to the other results from last week, of course, talking about tennis, had the loss to St. Thomas More for the boys, and the girls had a very strong victory. The girls are undefeated right now, and that's great. Baseball had a couple of games. They had a very strong win against Westgate, the team that has remained winless and will remain winless after that game. We beat them like 10-0. No surprise, but a good victory. Then we went to the Shaw tournament over the weekend, and we had a good showing. We had 2 games. One of them was a good win against St. Martin Episcopal, 7-5. And then we went on to lose to John Curtis, 8-7. However, this is John Curtis, like St. Thomas More, Jesuit, U High. John Curtis is one of those teams that's just one of those schools that's just really good at everything, and especially baseball, from my knowledge at the very least. And competing with John Curtis and going on to only lose 8-7 is an achievement in itself. So we went there, we went to New Orleans, and just like last week, again in Baton Rouge at the U High tournament, we went to New Orleans, we went to Shaw, and showed what Terrier sports looked like. So thank you to the baseball team for that. Moving on. And then I apologize for not being able to cover this beforehand. This is actually a huge game. Thank you for that, Jonathan, in the comments. This wasn't on the statistics page when I was looking at it earlier today, but we also beat De La Salle 7-6 in the last game of the tournament, and that is also really impressive. De La Salle is another one of those teams. Of course, the football team met them last season in a game, and it didn't go very well for us. We lost 42-7. So we met De La Salle and beat them in the baseball tournament. That is also really, really good for the baseball team. And even more than the John Curtis game, being able to beat a huge school, a huge program like De La Salle is so important for the program and the reputation of our Vanderbilt baseball team and our Vanderbilt school. So thank you for the boys baseball team, for the baseball team, for being able to do that. That was a great job. Thank you for that. Moving on to softball. Softball didn't quite have the same great week that baseball did, going 3-1. Baseball went. Softball went 1-2 with a couple of pretty sad losses. We played HL Bourgeois on Monday. That was our biggest win, our big win for the week. We beat them 7-1. Great job there. Not quite as great of a performance against St. Charles. Still good. St. Charles is a very strong team, and losing to them only 13-8 is still pretty solid. It's still a very respectable performance, but it was a loss, of course. And then lastly, we had a loss against Edie White, 11-6. I don't really want to touch too much about what happened in the tournament. 2 blowout losses against 2 very good teams, Notre Dame being one of them, and not a great showing for our softball team at that tournament. Track had a good performance at South Lafourche. The boys placed third. The girls went on to win the tournament with a very high number of placements, high placements there. And the boys, had a very strong performance in one specific event, being the 4x4. All 4 runners in that event set a school record for the event, and that is a great job for those boys. So the boys have a great school record coming out of the South Lafourche event, and the girls won, of course, the event. A great start to the season for both teams. Now the South Terrebonne meet got postponed. It was moved to Monday. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it now, just because the other meet that is this week for the boys is a little bit more important. I think it's better to talk about just alone. So the South Terrebonne meet, it's the same roster, same starting lineup as it would have been for Friday. Hopefully, coming straight off of a weekend don't have too big of an effect on our throwers, on our runners, on everyone for how they're going to be able to perform. Hopefully, any effect that it does have is going to be the same effect that it has with anyone else. And it will, again, hopefully be a great performance for both the boys and the girls. We'll talk about the other meets later on tonight. We're going to go ahead and preview everything else now. Tennis, track, baseball, softball, golf, all is going to be talking about right now. Starting with tennis. So I could have mentioned this talking to Michael. Maybe he could have had more insight. I probably should have brought it up. But there is a big tennis match against Ben Franklin this week. This was postponed from earlier on in the season, and as much as we were talking about how the small sample size of those games against Morgan City and the 2 games against St. Thomas More so far, it doesn't really show just the true depth of both tennis teams, especially the boys. That 1-2 record really doesn't show just how strong that boys team is. This will be a match to be able to show that. Because Ben Franklin is also really good. They lost their best player from last season, but they're still a really strong team. So we're going to have a chance to go out there and beat them. We had 2 losses for the boys team against St. Thomas More. The other big contender, Ben Franklin, we have a chance to go and knock off here. And the girls have a chance to extend that undefeated season. With those 2 wins against St. Thomas More, they have a chance to beat Ben Franklin and look like the favorites going into district, going into the playoffs, and making a run potentially even at state. So best of luck to both the boys and the girls there. They also take on South Terrebonne on Friday, which probably should be a relatively simple victory for both the boys and the girls. Boys golf is at, it was abbreviated as BCC on the calendar. I don't really know what that is. I apologize. But wherever that may be, on Tuesday, wish the boys golf team the best of luck. And the girls golf team travels to Latour on Thursday. I wish them the best of luck as well. Both teams have had pretty strong seasons so far, and hopefully they can continue that season on this week. Moving on, we have softball. Softball has 3 games this week. Beginning on Tuesday, we travel to South Terrebonne. South Terrebonne is pretty bad. South Terrebonne, they are 1-10 on the season. Their only win, hello Carter Chauvin, thank you for participating. Nice to see you here. Thank you for coming out to watch today. Thank you, Carter Chauvin. The South Terrebonne team that we're facing, 1-10, they're pretty bad. They managed their only victory. They're actually better than us in district right this second. They're 1-0 in district, are 0-1, 1 loss to Edie White earlier on in the season. They beat Ellender 11-1. And it's a game result like that that makes me wonder just how bad of a softball team Ellender has, because that's South Terrebonne's only win. I mean, you're a 4A team, Ellender. What are you doing? Come on, man. Hopefully, we're going to blow out South Terrebonne, and then we're going to go blow out Ellender whenever we play them in a few weeks or whenever that may be. Both of those games should be pretty easy for us and pretty good victories. They lost to a St. James team that we beat 7-2. We're almost doubling them in runs per game. They're giving up 11 runs per game. That's really bad. It really should be an easy victory for us. Of course, don't sleep on them. It's a district game. Don't sleep on any district games. Don't sleep on any games. But hopefully it'll be a victory, a pretty strong victory, and then as well as that Ellender game later on in the season. Then we travel to Central Lafourche on Wednesday. This team's pretty solid. They're above 500. They're 7-6. They have a stupid runs per game average this season. They have scored 137 runs. They average over 10 per game, which means in our defense, the season has not been stellar. We've given up many runs per game so far this season, which means this will probably be very high scoring. It'll be a tough match, but it should be winnable. Central Lafourche is a strong team. They're a good team. They're above average, but they are beatable. It is a winnable game. So let's just go out there and win it. Then we travel to Terrebonne on Friday. This is weird to analyze, the statistics, because Terrebonne has only played 5 games this season. Now they're 1-4, but potentially like the tennis teams with the 1-2 record, it might not be as indicative of how good the Terrebonne team is as being 1-4. Not much to look at with common opponents so far this season, because we haven't had many common opponents. They're winless at home, which should be good for us. We're going to be playing them at home. I'd favor us in this game with what little information I have on Terrebonne, but of course there's only so much I can look at for that. Of course, it is a very important game because every Terrebonne game is important just for local bragging rights. Terrebonne's only 5 minutes away from our campus. It's almost walking distance. So it's always a big game, no matter what sport we're playing Terrebonne in. So go out there, not a long car ride, not a long however you're going to get there, and support our Terriers on Friday night. Baseball. Baseball has a few big games. They host South Terrebonne on Tuesday, which is a weird day to be taking on South Terrebonne, considering that the girls' team is traveling to South Terrebonne on Tuesday. It's very odd. Both teams are 500, which means it should be a very good game. We've averaged both scoring and giving up more runs per game than they have this season. We've scored a few more runs in fewer games, and we have given up a lot more runs in fewer games. They blew the against common opponent record is interesting to look at. There's an interesting give and take here. So there are two games that are one, they blew out an East St. John team that we lost to earlier on in the season, our season opener. That was a 50-50 game that we played against them that we ended up losing, but they beat that team by like 5 or 6 or 7 runs. However, we played Ascension Episcopal earlier on in the season a lot closer than they did, only losing by a couple of runs, whereas they lost about 5 runs. Hello, William Haydell. Thank you for being on the live stream, and hope that you stay for the whole time. Thank you. Nice to see you here, Will. Ascension Episcopal, we had a much stronger game against them than South Terrebonne did. So it's a very interesting, a very even matchup, and it should be a good one to watch. Now, for the baseball players that are in the live chat, of course, John, please correct me on this if I'm wrong, because there's a little bit of confusion. I have 2 sources that I mainly I don't really understand that comment. I apologize, Seuss Boy. I don't know what that is. Sorry, but thank you for watching, whatever Cam's wave game. Hey, Jacob. Nice to see you here. Thank you for watching the stream. Thank you. Hey. So, John Jensen, please correct me, please clarify this for me, because my 2 main sources for this are conflicting. And it's very weird if this is true. But it says on the calendar that we are also traveling to South Terrebonne on Thursday. That's odd, considering that we're hosting South Terrebonne on Tuesday. The only real thing of note, if that is the case, in difference in matchup between those 2 games, is that South Terrebonne only has played 1 home game this season, which means it would probably actually be better for us to play South Terrebonne on the road with their home experience not being very good. We've played a lot of neutral site and away games lately, and we've had a lot of success, so it wouldn't be too odd for us to be playing there, whereas South Terrebonne may not be very used to it, playing 9 road games this season and only playing 1 home game. Now, there's also a confliction with the South Lafourche game, it being on the calendar, not being on Max Preps. I'm going to preview it the same way. Again, John or any other baseball players on here, please correct me if I'm wrong if either of these games aren't happening. But I'll go ahead and assume that they are right this second. So South Lafourche, we are taking on Friday, if I recall correctly, or Saturday, excuse me. And this team is very good. They are extremely strong. They are 10-3. They are undefeated on the road, plus 32 run differential. This is a great team. Now, this is a potential win for us, and here's why it's a potential win for us. Here's why this game is very winnable. We've seen this baseball team go out and beat tougher competition than we've played this season. Talking about De La Salle, talking about playing with ULAB, talking about playing with John Curtis, going out there and winning games that people probably wouldn't have favored us to win going into it. And this is going to be one of those games. And the thing is, South Lafourche is undefeated on the road. They are 4-3 at home. This game is winnable. This will be at South Lafourche. It'll be a long road trip, but they're not used to winning at home, We're going to go out there, throw the first punch, and win that game. That's what we need to do. We're feisty, we're hungry for a win, and we're going to go out and win that game against South Lafourche and beat those Tarpons in cutoff. That is a big game, and it's probably the second biggest event for this week. Any South Lafourche game is obviously always important, but nothing's really going to beat the importance of the single home track meet for the season. The main event of this week is the Terrier Relays. It's the one home track meet, unless some potential postseason, I think, are sometimes played at Vanderbilt. It is the one home track meet, the Terrier Relays, March 22nd, this Friday night. So many different athletes, so many different things you can go see. I personally will be announcing the relays starting at about 4:30-ish. After I finish throwing shot put myself, I'm going to go out there and announce the rest of the events. We're going to start throwing at about 3 o'clock, shot put, discus, and javelin. Other field events are going to be starting around then, pretty quickly after then as well. Everything is going to be starting up, high jump, long jump. Oh, then, of course, we're going to get to the relay events, long distance running, 3,200 meter, 1,600 meter. And then the big track stuff starts around 6-ish, if I recall correctly. Now, this is interesting. So I talked about the South Terrebonne meet earlier. It got postponed, and then it's going to be on Monday. This is our only week all season with 2 varsity meets. So hopefully that won't play too much into concerns for us this week. I understand from Monday to Friday it's not going to be too big of a problem, too big of a deal, but it will still, hopefully it won't affect us too much, is what I'm saying. And the huge difference between this tournament, this relay, and some of the others from earlier this season, specifically that South Lafourche. South Lafourche's relay only had 6 teams. This is going to have 12. Lots and lots of competition for this relay, for this track meet. And we're going to have to go out there and play hard, run hard, throw far, obviously everything we need to do. And it's going to be big. It's going to be a huge day. It's going to be the same day as Vandy Fest, so that field is going to be worked out a lot that day, that track, excuse me. And hopefully everyone's just going to have a good time. It's going to be a lot of competition. It's going to be really fun, and I hope to see you there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week of Terrier Talk, and I will see you next time. Not next week, not same time, same channel. It will be Tuesday night for the March Madness special. Be there, 8 p.m. Tuesday night. Same time, same channel, Tuesday night, March 19th. March Madness. Hope to see you there. See ya.